What's up, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of the Youth Pastor Podcast. My name is Tristan.
My name is JUDERY.
And we are so pumped. We started this just because, one, we just wanted to help the youth leader, the youth pastor, the youth worker, anybody that's out there volunteer for their churches, just to get some insight from a couple of guys like us. Like, we're nobody special. We're just a couple of guys that felt really called to do youth ministry at our times. And we felt like on the way, we got some insights that could really help people grow their youth ministries. We've been to all the youth conferences. We've done the whole thing. But I think what's missing is like really insight from in the trenches, how to grow youth ministry. It's more than just, a DJ and win some Yeezys for the person who brings the most friends. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a lot more than that. And I really feel like we really kind of found a thing that's worked. We've done it twice now at two different churches. And yeah, but anyway, a little bit about me, but let's first start with my brother, Juderay. Like who are you, brother?
Man, that's a deep question. Episode 1, who are you? No, I'm just playing. Hey, like he was saying, my name is Juderay. We are, in fact, brothers.
We are.
Yeah, just a bit of my testimony. Youth ministry has played a huge part in my life and my faith journey. Stemming back to when I was 11 years old in the 6th grade, a family friend invited me to a local church at the time. And I grew up in youth group, middle school, high school, Bible studies, youth retreats, summer camps, the whole nine, until I was about 17, 18 when I graduated high school. Then, like some that could probably relate to this, I fell out of it for a while, fell out of my faith altogether. That's not appropriate for the meetings of this podcast, but it's probably on my iCloud somewhere, not gonna lie. Yeah, now's not the time to prove it. But luckily, by the grace of God, in January 2019, I was invited to join an existing youth ministry at the time in downtown Los Angeles, more specifically at a church called Hillsong. And the person running it at the time happens to be sitting to my right. So
what it is.
What it do, baby. What it do. And ever since then, I've been serving in youth ministries in various capacities, at high capacities, not to do my own horn, not to brush my own shoulders off. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope truly that this empowers you, that it encourages you, and ultimately inspires you to just glorify the kingdom, right?
Yeah.
And specifically through the medium that is serving you.
Yeah.
So thank y'all so much. That's enough about me. But I'm gonna pass it off to this dude over here.
Tristan, yeah, I mean, long story, obviously, but I'm gonna try to keep it like as short and sweet as possible. But the truth is, didn't grow up in church. Parents were Catholic. I remember so vividly the youth pastor that I had, met. I was a senior in high school. Wanted to really, get by. I was not the smartest kid. But in high school as a senior, you had to graduate with like 60 hours of community service hours or something like that. And I thought, because I was playing music in a band at the time, I was like, hey, you know what? Like, maybe I'll ask my drummer to ask his youth pastor, can you sign my paper, say I did it so I can walk on stage? It was a requirement. You have to do these hours or you're not going to walk on the stage. My parents really wanted me to walk the stage. So came up with this deal. I was like, yo, dude, talk to your youth pastor, see if he can get me to get these papers signed. And the next thing you know, he asked me to go to church on Sunday, meet with him. And I was like, all right, cool. I'll come out, check it out. And then, we'll do the thing. Right. And then, so he ended up actually saying, hey man, you know what we're going to do is you're actually going to volunteer in this church and you're going to actually earn these hours. And I was like, dang. So I got trapped into going to church, but that really did, that trap was a good trap. It was meant to be. So that being said, kind of did the whole church thing, became a youth intern after that. Really helped it was a small little Japanese church in the west side of LA, but I had no idea what I was doing. I was just doing the best that I could, led worship, did the whole thing. But it wasn't until, in 2013, I joined Hillsong Church. Brian Houston, who founded Hillsong Church in Australia, sent his son, Ben and Lucille to LA.
That's right.
And so I came to the very first gathering.
At One Oak. Shout out
at the One Oak.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't wonder if it still exists.
I don't know.
Well, that's kind of what happened. I ended up going to the One Oak, met so many people. And then people that I know today, which is kind of crazy. And then I helped really, I had my hands open and just really helped with whatever. And then eventually, years down the line, would get the honor of pastoring the youth ministry at Hillsong Los Angeles, which was a dream, to be quite honest. Like, man, that's like would never have thought a Pepperdine business student, would get the honor of doing that. Like, I didn't go to Bible college or anything like that. I just, God just paved the way somehow, and it's great. So that's a little bit about us. And then, but yeah, I learned some things on the way. And this is why this podcast exists, guys, so that we can just really share the wisdom, some of the mistakes even that we've
Mm-hmm.
learned and
Mm-hmm.
done, and try to help you guys out so you guys can expand your youth ministries. Because I know how much churches really want to see young people there, and
Right.
but it takes leaders who are called, who are equipped, and just has the tools to really do the thing, because
Mm.
it's not easy. So episode 1, we're going to talk about this, and I've shared this leadership message a lot to the teams. I always do it I might have even repeated it multiple times. But the title of this episode is "Youth is not about you."
Ooh,
I always say it's not. When you look at youth, the first 3 letters are YOU, and youth is not about you,
it's
and
not.
it's definitely not, because I think,
Thank y'all so much for tuning in. I'm leaving. I'm out. Dang.
but
It's not though, for real.
it's
Like,
not, because young people they're smart. They know if you are for them or for yourself.
mm,
And I think a lot of people, when they think about the idea, because there's always those pastors at church that was like, "Hey, we need junior high volunteers. Hey, we need high school volunteers," and all that kind of stuff. But then, then you see this cool little sizzle video of someone preaching on stage, and the young people are just like, "Yeah, God's good,
right.
man." And then you see the small group setting, and then you just see like hands being laid on a young person. And it's
Right.
like, we are, believing for yada, whatever it may be,
And
right?
then the mosh pits during worship, right?
Yeah,
It's
there's
just
there's like a vanity,
there's a certain vibe to it, right?
like,
For lack of a
oh
better term,
man,
yeah.
like, and
An
it's,
aesthetic, right? Like,
yes, and it like sells the person, like, oh man, I could preach, I
mm,
could be the one to lay hands on a young person and intercede, all those kinds
right.
of things, right? But the truth is, and Jitter, you can interject in this, but like, is that truly what your experience in youth ministry?
Man, that's a great wow. That's not to say that that doesn't exist within youth ministry or just
Yeah.
ministry more generally speaking, but as far as youth ministry in particular, that's about 10% of the equation. It is like the 10% of taxes that get extracted from your income every
Don't
month.
remind them
Every
that,
oh,
man.
this is a tax-free podcast. But yeah, it's such a small part of ultimately the bigger picture, right? Which is ultimately doing life with young people. Um, Church really isn't about the Sundays, and that's not to diminish nor devalue the value of a Sunday,
Mhm.
but it's ultimately, especially in youth ministry, doing life with them, right? Monday
Yeah.
through Saturday, checking in
Mhm.
on them. How are they doing?
Yeah.
How's you stuck with your girlfriend?
Yeah.
Did you make the football team?
Yeah.
Et cetera, right?
Yeah.
That's truly what it's about
Yeah. And I think
out
when it
there in the
comes down
field.
to youth is not about you, the first thing I just want to remind every single person that's watching, whether you're considering volunteering, or maybe you are a pastor out there, or a youth coordinator, leader, whatever it may be on staff, to check your heart. It starts with the
Mm,
heart. If you know, number one, that you feel called to minister to young people, great. That's it. But if there's any tinge where it's like this idea of like picturing yourself, visioning yourself, preaching on a platform, which, by the way, there's people out there who feel called to communicate. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think if you want true youth ministry, and this is about growing youth ministries, and maybe you're part of a struggling ministry where it's struggling to grow, you're gonna need to feel called. Because one, I always say this when we were actively serving in youth ministry, we're not a babysitters club. Okay, this
mm,
is not where you go get pizza and drinks
do homework.
and do homework. Like, our job is to point you to Jesus. So it's
Right.
going to be your job as the leader, since this whole concept is youth is not about you. You have to understand, you have to remove yourself from the equation. Like, God used you as a vessel, number
Mm,
one,
mm,
and just remove yourself, and two, make it about the young person. Because like I
mm-hmm.
said before, youth are smart. These young people, they're getting smarter and smarter every day. It's They know if you are for them, or if you're for yourself.
Mm,
So number one, understand you have to be called. And then we have another point. I think the second thing I think is it's foundational, right? You have to be called. Um, if you don't feel called, that's okay. Volunteer on a different team.
right. Right.
Like, just because, like, you may have had a conversation, you thought about it, and if it's not a thing, don't do it, because the last thing a young person needs is for you to commit, be there for 2 weeks, and then you're gone.
Right.
That is heartbreaking.
Right. Ultimately, or sometimes a young person can internalize that as, what did I do wrong? Was it something I did?
Yep.
Was it the fact that we wanted to go to Chick-fil-A, but the leader wanted to go to Arby's or whatever the case may be? Like, and then they just bounced and moved to Iowa, 2 weeks
Yeah.
later. That's heartbreaking. And
Yeah.
no young person deserves that.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's on the leaders, whether it's in a pastoral role, coordinator role, whatever the case may be, to foster and create a safe space
Yeah.
for a young person to not only be in and live in, but hopefully thrive in at the
Yeah.
end of the day and grow in their faith, right? Wherever they start at. So yeah, man.
That's good. That was really good. Juderay, what are some of the wrong reasons to join youth ministry?
Um,
I mean, you've seen it all.
yeah. No, that's a loaded question.
You were
That's a
under
loaded,
all my
loaded question.
teams.
Yeah, it's a loaded question. Anything that's not ultimately centered around glorifying God's kingdom through the vessel that is serving young people, right? So it could be something like, I'm out here trying to preach. I'm out here trying to promote my business. I'm out here trying to shoot my shot at that young lady who serves in the youth ministry and she's popping and she's popular.
Yo, that's so real. But hey, God will use
like,
anything. God will use anything.
That's true. Yeah, Romans 8:28, man, he uses all things for good. But
let's keep the main thing here. If you're going to do youth, you got to do youth.
And it speaks to your first point, right? The heart. At the end of the day, where is your heart? Where is your intention at the end of the day? Right?
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that I've seen and encountered in my day. But there's definitely a long list. But if I were to paraphrase it or summarize it, it would be anything that's not to glorify the kingdom of God. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
I remember my first time even joining the youth ministry at Hillsong. Like at Hillsong, I first started the hosting team. So I helped build the hosting team. I didn't start off in youth ministry, but my friend Austin May, who, what's up, my boy, he really got me into youth ministry. But I was selfish. I was like, well, if I'm going to do this youth ministry thing, I want to be on the worship team. Like I came in with this intent of like, well, if I'm going to do this, I want this.
Yeah, personal gain.
Yeah. Because like, you know, I had a music background. I've always had this dream to be on the Hillsong worship team, you know?
Right. And that's not to discredit the work that they've done,
Yeah.
right? United,
the music's beautiful.
Young and Free, whatever the case may be. Super beautiful.
But I got checked in that moment.
Yeah.
Like I remember, man, sitting in the car with them on our way from, man, we had our team meetings were all the way in Burbank, and we all lived all the way in LA. So it took 2 hours for us to get to like staff meetings.
And for those that are not from Southern California, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
The LA area, Burbank to say a Culver City, Santa Monica is what, 15 miles away?
Yeah.
But it could be an hour and a half.
Take an hour.
Yeah. So
it sucks.
That's commitment right there.
It's commitment.
For you to go to those leader meetings.
Yeah.
I'm trying to give you credit, you know.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, man. So I remember sitting in the car on our way to staff meeting, and like they were just telling like, well, you know, you just have to be ready to just do anything. And I was like, but I don't understand. Like that concept didn't hit me until I actually started doing it. And I remember when I first started youth ministry, I wanted to be on the worship team so bad that I ended up being in the creative team. And I remember being on that creative team, right? Where I was doing like creative producing, but like it felt so weird. Like I was like, I don't really think I know what I'm doing here. So then I remember the first youth night we put on, I was still creative producing, right? And I was following around. This was our first big youth night. There was like hundreds of kids that showed up to this, at the Belasco Theater in downtown.
Wow.
I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm just like, I'm holding the microphone saying tuss, tuss, and I'm just following around this other guy who was more seasoned. And then there was a moment when Austin just said, you know what, man, forget this. I ditched that team. I just ditched it. I just like stopped going there, and I sat down with a young person while service was going on. And I was like, this was where my bread and butter was, you know? And that's when I kind of knew, man, it's kind of crazy to think about that actually happened. But anyway, some of the wrong reasons to join, you know, it's if you have anything where there's like something you feel like you're going to gain something out of it, probably not a good idea for you to join youth. Another wrong reason is if you don't have the time. It takes a lot of time. Everyone thinks like this isn't let's be real here for youth ministries that are wanting to grow, especially if you're starting from scratch, or if you've been like apathetic with 6 students or something like that, which we'll share in future episodes of examples of where we've helped really turn a youth ministry from an apathetic group of 6 people into like 50, 60 in like less than a couple months. Like, but it's going to take time. If you don't have the time, don't do it. Like really don't. Like everyone thinks it's like I show up to youth nights and I show up on Sundays and then I'm out. Like there's no shifts, there's no clocking in, there's no clocking out.
Right.
You have to dedicate the time because there are going to be moments, especially after you build the trust with a young person, that you're going to get calls at midnight. Are you going to take it? I hope you do, because that's what it's going to take. You're going to have, especially if you're starting out and you're trying to build the trust of a young person. Like there's a lot of people out there that want to have established big youth ministry, but it takes it takes a lot in the
Mm.
beginning. So
Mm.
if you don't have the time, don't do it. Let's go
Yeah,
ahead and
time's
talk.
important. No, just to
Yeah.
add to that, people have asked me that consider joining youth ministries and things of that sort. Like, oh, like what's the commitment? What's the time commitment? They think it's like, oh, like 25 hours a week, like a job, like a Cold Stone Creamery, whatever the
Yeah.
case may be. But what I always tell them is, it is a commitment, like you were saying. It is the time. You know, you have to invest, and at
Yeah.
the end of the day, God doesn't give up on us, so we're not called to give up on these young people. You know what I'm
Ooh.
saying? Kind of like that example we were talking about
Wow.
earlier, right? Like, oh, why did that leader leave? You know, move to Iowa. You know, like we should have went to Arby's. You know, like or whatever the case may be. God doesn't give up on us, so we darn well better not give up
Give
on
up on a
these young
young
people.
person.
You know what I'm
Whew.
saying? That's real
Yes.
because we
Yeah.
don't know what they're walking in at the end of the day.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it could be broken familial units that they're experiencing at
Mm-hmm.
home.
Especially coming from LA.
Yeah,
Like we have different, diverse types of like young people
from
from different
all walks of
backgrounds.
life. Could be getting bullied at school or bullied online, right? We live in the day and age of social media. So I say that to say we don't know what a young person's walking in. So to speak to that point of commitment, right? It is a commitment.
Yeah.
We're called to serve on them and to them, right? As
Yeah.
young people. So
Yeah.
yeah, man, just want to add on to
It's
that.
really good.
Yeah, man.
So at the end of the day, guys, youth is not about you. And if you're a leader, you're a pastor, a volunteer, whatever it may be, if we can just really grasp that, man, I think it's going to be game changing for your ministries, for your groups, for your small groups, whatever it is you guys are running. But we can grasp that concept, and maybe you're already in the trenches of it, and you're still wanting to grow. Check your heart, and really even ask God, pray, be like, hey man, break my heart for these young people. If you're
Mm,
stuck, like,
mm,
and then I remember for me when I was at Hillsong, I wasn't the youth pastor yet, but my heart broke for Culver City. I remember I was driving down the street and I had this vision of myself being in a football field and eventually, and I'll talk about this in future episodes, but God paved the way for me to eventually minister to the same high school I graduated from, to a football team I've always wanted to be a part of, and it was kind of cool to see what God did through that. But if you're out there and you really want to do youth ministry, then you best be called, man. Number one.
mm,
Number two, you better have the time. Number three, you got to understand it's a commitment.
mm-hmm.
But we are believing the best for you guys. If this is helping you guys and you love the content that you're hearing, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram at the Youth Pastor. But we love you guys. We are praying God's best for you guys. We want to see youth ministries grow, because if they grow, the kingdom grows.
That's right.
All right, y'all. We'll see you guys in the next
Thank y'all so
episode.
much.
Peace.